Hi, this is Tom from Land of Math. In this video, we're going to look at line graphs. And not just any line graph, we're looking at line graphs that have proportional relationships. And from that kind of a graph, we can come up with all kinds of information. For example, we can find the constant, we can find the unit rate. We can create equations to help us solve for x or y. We can use those two equations to help us solve other types of problems. In addition, we can also complete an entire table based around this graph. Now in this video, we're going to break it up into three different graphs. They'll each have a different slope. And we'll go over each of those and we'll talk about how you can find all those different pieces of information. So all that's coming up next on the Land of Math. When you're working with a graph, there's so much information you can get. Just from this little basic graph here, we can help determine what is our constant proportionality. We can use it to determine what the unit rate is. We can use it to help create an equation to find x. We can also use it to help create an equation to find y. We can use this graph to help us find the total amount for x or also a total amount for y. And the other thing we could do is we can have a table that goes along with this that we can complete just by looking at this graph. Okay, so let's look at our first graph. Now a couple key things here. We're going to have some lines that run up and down, some vertical lines. We also have some horizontal lines or side to side. And we also have this darker line right here, which represents our information. And what we're really looking for is a spot where all three of these lines kind of meet. And so this is going to help us find our unit rate and constant and stuff like that. So I'm highlighting these, kind of pointing them out. Now also we have an axis that runs up and down. That's referred to as our y-axis. And then the axis that runs horizontal is referred to as our x-axis. So to find the constant of a graph, first of all, constant, they use a k to represent constant. Not really sure why, but it is what it is. So to find the constant, we're going to take y and we're going to divide it by x. So you pick a random point on the line. So for example here it says $50 and it's 25 tacos. So the 50 is on the y-axis, so we're going to put the 50 on top. The 25 represents the x-axis, so we're going to put it on the bottom. So when we take 50, we divide it by 25, we get 2. So our constant proportionality is going to be 2. And you could do this with any of these lines. For example, 20 divided by 10 would also give us the exact same constant of 2. So we know our constant proportionality is 2. And we're going to use this 2 when we're trying to find our unit rate. So we're going to take the number 2 from the constant and bring it down here for the unit rate. But we have to figure out what does the 2 represent. So what we're doing is taking our y divided by our x. So in this case, it's cost and it's divided by tacos. So if we're taking cost divided by tacos, we're finding what is the cost for one taco. And in our situation here, the answer is $2 per taco or for each taco. All right, next what we can do is take this 2, which is our constant and also our unit rate, to help us create an equation to find the value of y. Now if you look at the relationship between x and y, each one of the y's happens to be 2 times bigger than the x. So our equation can be 2x equals y. And on the flip side, if we're trying to find an equation for x, whatever y is, we're just going to divide it by 2, or our constant again, and that will give us x. All right, on these next problems, we're going to use our equations to help us out. So the first one, or first two, we're going to use the equation to find y. So it's basically 2 times whatever x is, in this case 37, and we get $74. The next one, x would be 72, so it's just 2 times 72, and it would be $144. The next two problems, we're going to try to find x. So we're just taking our total cost, in this case 34, divided by our constant, which is 72. And you'll notice we use 2 is like a recurring theme here, it keeps coming up. So when we divide by 2, we get 17, so it'd be 17 tacos. And the last one of these problems, we take our $92 that we spent on tacos, divide by our constant, and we get 46. So we get 46 total tacos. All right, the last thing with our graph we're going to use is to complete this table. And we're going to be using these two equations yet again, which are using our constant. If we want to find the y's, we're just multiplying our x's by 2. So you can see 5 times 2 would be 10, and 36 times 2 would be 72. Now, if we're trying to figure out what x is, we're just going to use the equation over here, y divided by 2 equals x. So this y happens to be 60. So we would just plug it right in here, go y divided by 2, and that's going to give us 30. And the next one, we're going to put 132 for our y divided by 2. And when we do that, we're going to get 66. So our cost is the x, so it would be $66. All right, on our second graph, you're going to notice the slope of this one is a much steeper slope. And it doesn't go through every single little intersection of our vertical and horizontal lines. So we have less lines that actually have all three lines meeting. So we have a couple right here. We have one more up here. It looks like the 450 and the 9. Okay? So that's our graph. And again, just like we said before, we're going to find out our constant. So we're going to take whatever y is divided by the x. So on this one, $150 would be 3 jackets. So we're just going to take the 150. We'll divide it by 3. So 150 divided by 3 is going to equal 50. So our constant is going to be 50. But we'll check this one also. So if we go 300 divided by 6, we're going to get the same answer. We're going to get 50. And if it's something, the line that's showing constant, it should get the same thing. So we know our constant's 50. On this particular graph, what we're looking at is cost and jackets. So it'd be cost, which is our y divided by jackets x, and we find out our cost per jacket. So that would be $50 for each jacket, or $50 per jacket. And again, we're going to use this to help us with our equations. So to find y, it would be 50 times whatever x is will give us y. And on the flip side, if we're finding x, we just take whatever y is, divide it by 50, and that'll give us x. So if we're trying to find the cost of jackets, we would just take 50 times whatever x is, and that's going to give us $850, which is our y. The next one, we just take the 50 times 43, and that's going to give us our total of 2,150. Now, this one, we're using our equation to find x. So we take our y, divided by that constant again, 50, and we get 12, so it's 12 jackets. And on the next one, we're going to take $950, again, divided by the constant. You keep seeing that 50 popping up over and over, and you find out that would be 19 jackets. And so now we can go over here to our table. And as we did before, whatever our x is, we're just going to multiply by 50. So 2 times 50 is 100. And 11 times 50 would be 550. And then on the next one, finding x, we're just using the equation y divided by 50. So 450 divided by 50 is 9. And 650 divided by 50 was 13. And now for our third graph. And you're going to see the slope of this graph is not very steep at all. Matter of fact, it's almost flat. So again, when we're looking for the points where all these lines intersect, there's not as many. Matter of fact, there's only 2 that we can see right on this graph. So again, if we're finding our constant, again, that's y divided by x. So in this case, we would be taking 40. We could divide it by 10, and we would get 4. So if we know the constant is 4, our unit rate, we're just taking miles divided by hours. So it would be 4, and it would be miles per hour. So we're just taking the miles divided by the hours, which is our x, and that gives us how many miles we get for each 1 hour. And now we're going to use this 4 to help us create these 2 equations again, just like we've done before. So to find y, we would just take 4 times the x, and if we're trying to find x, we just take y divided by the 4, and that'll give us the x. For this next problem, we're going to use the formula to find y. So we're going to take 4 times the number of hours, which in this case is 15, and that would give us 60 miles. On the next one, we're going to take our constant again of 4 times 27 in this case, and we come up with 108 miles. The next one, we're going to use the other formula to find x, and you can see we took 52 times our constant, divided by our constant, and that would be 13 hours. And then on the next one, we'll take the 900 miles, divided by our constant, and that's going to give us 225, and this should be hours, not miles. And finally, to complete our table, to find the y side, we just use our equation again to find y, and we're going to multiply both the x's here by 4, and then to get the x, we're going to use our other formula where we're just taking y divided by 4. And you can see we're getting 28.125 here. And we're going to get 200 on this one. Well, hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. And we'd love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Until then, we'll see you next time on The Land of Math.